Hi there, I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com, and this is my Smart American Accent Training. Welcome to our Friday live question and answer class, where you can ask your questions about American English pronunciation, American accent, intonation, difficult words, anything that will help you improve your personal and professional communication in American English. Thank you to all of you who have been making suggestions and requests for our Word of the Day series. It's been going strong now for several months, and I have a nice long list of videos to make for you in future days. So we'll be back again with the next class tomorrow. In those classes, we look at breaking down the pronunciation of a particular word. And we always look at the syllable stress in the word, the sounds in the word, how the spelling may be different from the sounds that you hear. And we look for accent error patterns to watch out for. So the reason some words are difficult, there's many different reasons, but oftentimes it's because of the combination of sounds in the word, knowing how to pronounce it correctly, knowing what those vowel letters and those vowel sounds are, and then just typically some things that are hard based on what's challenging for you in your accent and your native language, as well as there are some words that are difficult even for me or any native speakers to say because of the combination of sounds. So you can request any word that you'd like. There is a little bit of a wait now because we have so many great requests out there, but I do encourage you to ask your questions today. If you've been waiting and you'd like to hear about your word and you're here live, that's one of the advantages of coming to the live class. At the start of class today, I want to talk a little bit about a couple of words that I encourage you to use that will help you to have more of the native speaker sound. And they're really common and useful words. So last week we talked about some contractions like I will, going to I'll, I am, going to I'm. And I encouraged you to use contractions because they help with the fluency of speech. And also Americans will almost always contract rather than using the full form of the verb. It's formal, it's professional, it's correct. So let's take a look at how we would pronounce the contraction for could have, which is could've, and couldn't have, which is couldn't've. And these same contractions work for should've, could've, would've. So there's 3 different common combinations. And what I often hear for the error is that people will be trying to say could've, and what they'll do is they'll still kind of say that have. So it'll sound more like could have, and they have trouble reducing and correcting this sound. And so then it's not as fluent and not as American sounding. So thinking of could've, the way that looks, it doesn't help me pronounce it that well. When Americans are learning how to spell could've, they will write it like could of, those 2 words, because that's how it sounds. And little kids or people learning to write think that those are the words rather than one word could've. And another way to write that is to think about could has the same vowel sound as good and book. It's this vowel here. So sometimes I write that with OU. Sometimes I write that with just U. In this case, I think I'll write it with OU because that's how it's spelled in could. But then I don't have any L sound there. And then the of is also sometimes prone to accent errors. So I'm going to write that as UV, of. It has a schwa and a V sound. And so if I think about could've, maybe if you see it written this way, it'll be easier for you to pronounce it correctly. Once I can say could've, I want to start trying to use it right away in some short phrases like I could have done that, I could have gone there, I could have helped you, he could have listened, he could have talked, trying to get it fluent and easy in my natural speech. Also useful, couldn't've. So if I'm doing couldn't, I'm going to have could, and then my NT, syllabic N and stopped T. So it sounds like couldn't. The D, N, and T are all kind of one sound there together. Couldn't. I kind of go from the D through the N and the T. And then adding of, couldn't've, the T kind of just drops off. So I have couldn't've. The N doesn't really have much of a syllable. Couldn't have. I couldn't have done it better. I couldn't have explained it before now. He couldn't have helped you anyway. It couldn't have been worse. These same pronunciations work for would've, wouldn't have, should have, and shouldn't have. And I highly recommend trying to practice those and incorporate them into your speech, because they do have that American sound. And once you can say them correctly, even though they might be daunting at first, they will help you with fluency and having nice, easy pronunciation. These contractions and things that we shorten and reduce come from the fact that in the American sound system, it's easier to do it this way. So it's not just an arbitrary, oh, hey, let's say it this way. It's all for the ease of movement, which, as I said, may not seem easier to you initially, but in the long run is more efficient for the other sounds of English, and you may find that to be very helpful. Okay, thanks for waiting on your questions. I see that a few have come in while I've been talking, so I'm going to address those now. Susan would like to know if there's a hidden J sound in the words here and fear, or a hidden Y sound. She's showing the IPA symbol that's like the letter J, which is the Y. And her words were here and fear. And no, we don't really have a Y in those words. It's just an E. And just an E-er. So I go from the H to my E, here, and fear. I just want to build from that ear. Although, I'm going to correct myself. So between the E and the ear, if I go really slowly, because I'm gliding from the E to the ear, there is a little bit of a Y in there. I wouldn't do anything to put it there. I wouldn't try E-yer. It will sound unnatural. But if you feel like E-er doesn't glide easily, that's probably you need that glide in there. That's the sound that happens when I glide between those two vowels. Great question. And sorry for the confusing answer. Yes, there is a Y in here and fear between the E and the but don't overpronounce it. Okay, great. Thank you. We have, similarly, the other question she had is the hidden W in tour and doer. And yes, so same thing between the oo sound and the sound. The oo is a rounded shape. So when I go ooer, and I keep my voice on, then we hear the w. The E shape, ear, is a smiling shape. And when I move from E to ear, then I get the Y sound. I have a video and a lesson. This is what's called vowel to vowel linking. And again, it's what happens naturally when you make those sounds correctly. But if you're hearing something different and those sounds are missing, then you might find it helpful to look at all of the places where we have the hidden W and the hidden W and the hidden Y, the hidden glides, basically. So if you go to speechmodification.com, and you're on the free practice, going to the online practice free trial, you can type in vowel to vowel linking, or just vowels, and you'll find it. But if I look for vowel to vowel linking, you can see I have a YouTube video and a lesson that will show you right here, vowel to vowel linking. It will show you these hidden Y and W sounds, where they happen and between which vowels. So they also happen in sentences. If I'm saying something like he is and I link, it sounds like he is, that Y sound is there. Or you are, sounds like you are, there's the hidden W sound. So you can see the patterns and get help for that on speechmodification.com. Thank you, that's a good topic. And we will talk about that topic again in a future class. I wanted to mention that I'm going to be holding some additional live question and answer classes. Pretty soon, I'm going to add a new feature to the channel, which is that I'm going to have some membership options. And those classes will be similar to these classes, but we'll look at specific topics in each class. And you'll be able to come and attend in a smaller group and ask questions about that topic. So I'm excited. I'll give you some more information and announcements about that as that goes forward. But I am hoping that some of you who've been enjoying the weekly classes. We'll continue to enjoy these classes and perhaps be interested in adding some additional member classes. Okay, so Dana wants to know, she's saying she has 3 words that are somewhat similar and she's not entirely sure how to pronounce them. So piquant, and piquancy. I don't know piquancy. I've never seen that one before. So let's look that one up in the dictionary as a way to start. So as you know, if you've been coming to class, I do use online tools quite a bit. And the online dictionary I like is the Oxford Learner's Dictionary. So the word I was unfamiliar with was piquancy, which I think is having to do with something being piquant, how piquant it is probably. And I'm guessing on the pronunciation based on what I know about rules. Yeah, so it is first syllable stress, has the tense E, piquancy. And then when I'm looking at piquant, I think that has second syllable stress. Let's just check. Which would be still a secondary stress on the first syllable P. No, piquant, wrong. So good thing I checked. So we have piquancy and piquant for your first 2 words, and then piquant is the other one, and that's the one that has to do with the heat, and that's the one that I know and use, and so I'm subject to the same error patterns that might happen for you, which is the one I knew, I was trying to apply it to the word I didn't know, and the rules are different. In piquant, picante. Oh, okay, picante. So this is like the Spanish where the E has the A sound, picante, second syllable stress. Great. Okay, so hopefully that helped you with those words. Definitely less used words, and it's good to see how they relate to one another, where the stress is, and what the vowels are. Susanna would like to know how to pronounce oak. So oak it follows one of our spelling rules, which is that when we have a stressed syllable, the letter O spelled with 2 vowels, like in road or coat, says the sound O. In American O, we glide between O and then we relax into the O. So we want a nice long O, and then we just have our K sound, oak. You might write it this way if it helps you to think about O, like I owe you money, and then we add the K, oak. Yeah, okay. Rhymes with some other words with the same spelling, like cloak, or poke has a different spelling, but it also has an O and an E, 2 vowels for our O. Helene would like to know how to pronounce overwhelm. Overwhelm. Didn't we cover overwhelming in one of our word of the day lessons for you? Check that out. I'll look for the link and send you that as well. But overwhelm is a tough combo, right? Because we have the rounded O, and then we have to go into our V. So what you'll probably want to watch out for is you don't want over. You want, unlike oak with the OW sound, we need to make sure we close to the V. Over, tighter. And then I want my W, whelm, my red tent vowel, whelm, and then my LM together, overwhelm. And also short, long. So in words with over and under as the prefix, we often have the last syllable, or the syllable right after over or under is the one that gets the stress. So short, long, overwhelm. I hope that didn't overwhelm you, how quickly I went through that information. If you find the pace to be too fast, if I speak very quickly, as you're watching live, not much you can do about it. But if you're watching it on a replay, you can actually use the settings tool. It's the little wheel in the window, and you can click on the playback speed and you can turn it to 75%. This is something I recommend for my videos, for watching other YouTube videos, for being able to hear all of the little sounds and the way words connect. It's wonderful to listen to American English at the actual rate that Americans speak, which is often quite fast. But to hear some of the nuances and details, your brain might take in the information better at the slower rate. I will also try not to speak so rapidly during class. I do find that when I see I have a lot of questions to answer, I want to go quickly so I have time for everyone's question. But that's part of why I'm looking into adding some membership classes so that you can get more specific help for your questions, in addition to our weekly classes, to have some more classes for you to help you with your specific questions. Getting feedback and getting things answered in a timely manner, I think, is really helpful and useful. So I'd like to be able to provide that for you. Okay. Astrid wants to know if there's a flapped T on metal and how to pronounce metal. So you might have heard the way I pronounce those two, very similar. We have metal, like metal cookware or the substance metal, and we have medal, which is something, an award that you win. This is a flap T. It's basically the same. These two words are basically the same. We've talked about this before with the flap T versus the D. We pretty much flap the D as well. Metal, metal. The only difference is that this might be slightly longer on my vowel sound before my D as opposed to metal. But that's going to depend on where that word falls in the sentence. So if I just say it's metal, I'm going to be fairly quick on the eh sound versus it's a metal. I might be holding my eh slightly longer. I think for most people, as long as you are using a flap T and the correct vowel sounds for both of those, you will find that they're basically the same pronunciation. Great question. Okay. Susanto wants to know if there's an easy technique to understand the schwa sound. Basically, I think finding out what's going wrong for you on hearing and using the schwa sound is the best way and the easiest way. And to know what your pattern is for the schwa sound, I recommend looking at your accent patterns for your native language. So let's go back to speechmodification.com, and I'll show you here on the store page that you can go into the free downloads and get a download that shows you if your native language is Spanish, Russian, one of the Indian languages, regardless of the language, you can go in and you can say, okay, here's what accent patterns I have. And you can look specifically at vowel schwa and see what errors you might make on it. So that's here on the store page on free downloads. And for many, many non-native speakers, the errors that you have on schwa are that instead of having a relaxed central tongue, sounding like you might make it a little bit more tense and open, sounding more like ah. That's the most common error for words like such and fun and come. Then the other error that you'll have is where the schwa is unstressed in longer words, you may say a clear vowel instead of the schwa. So let's give you an example of both. In the word above, I have two schwas. I have my unstressed schwa here, short, and my stressed schwa here, long. It looks like this in the dictionary. Above sounds like above, short, long. The errors I might have, maybe when I see that A, I might say something a little bit more like an A or an A or an The letter is influencing me, and I need to be saying the schwa, the In above, either I could have that error of saying it more like an O, above, something rounded because of the way it's spelled, or that's where I'm going to do more of the tense above instead of above, above. So find out what error you might have. Start using my materials for schwa to learn which words have the schwa, and begin to practice lots of longer words with that relaxed schwa sound. You will see these words in my Word of the Day playlist that'll help you start getting used to hearing the schwa, and I have a number of different videos to help you with schwa as well. On my free online practice, I have some lessons that can show you which words and how to begin building with those words. And in my online courses, we talk about vowel schwa and learning vowel schwa to help you with your overall American accent. So great question. There's no simple way really to change any pattern or to be able to learn and hear it. But once you start working on vowel sounds and getting oriented to a specific vowel, that will help you with all of the American English vowel sounds. Okay, great question. We have a question. About the words peace, peace, and peas. Great, I love this. So we're looking at these words have the same vowels and the same initial sound. So if I'm talking about piece, like a piece of pie, I have the tense E and the S sound voiceless. Same pronunciation for piece. So I can have a piece of pie and I can have peace of mind, and I have the same pronunciation for those. And then peas, only difference is I have the voiced Z sound. So where this really comes into play is if I'm saying peas are, then I want to make sure I have that Z, peas are, versus peace is. I want to have a voiceless S sound. Because the sound is voiced in peas, I hold this vowel longer. So if I'm saying just one of these versus one of these, you'll hear peace, peas. The most important way to differentiate those is hold that vowel longer, because Americans don't say peas with a strong Z sound. They make it very light and short, but they mark it by having a long vowel, peas. Same thing would be true for bus and buzz, or other non-S and Z patterns like coat and code. We have short and long. Before the voiceless, short. Before the voiced consonant, long. I do have a video with a list of words and an explanation about that. You can find it on Speech Modification Seattle, also on speechmodification.com on our free practice materials. Okay, that's a really good question, because that's a very important concept where a lot of people have error patterns between those voiced and voiceless end sounds. Let's see. Hi, everyone who's joined since I started. I love all the questions today. It's wonderful to see so many familiar faces. I'm really enjoying having these weekly classes and seeing people coming back, attending, and asking such great questions that help not only you, but the other people in class as well. Okay, so we have a question about when did you, whether or not we can drop the first D. So let's take a look at your phrase. When did you? And you're wondering about if you can drop that first D. When did you? I would say that when did you? That I link these, when did. I don't really drop that first D though. When did you sounds wrong to my ear. When did you? It's not heavy. I'm not doing when did. There's no break there, but I am still doing that first D. And the did you has kind of a, because I link those two together, it has kind of a j quality. When did you? So I would probably write that as when did you, like that. Another reduction that we will do sometimes is the you will become a ya. When did you talk to him? When did you go? It's not necessary to do it, but you will hear the you become ya often in American speech. Great question. Thank you. Good. We have a question, another question from Dana. How I would pronounce Medipack or Medipack and Yakuza. I'm not familiar with the Yakuza, so that's a guess on my part. Perhaps that's a brand name or a person's name, but I'm following American conventions there, Yakuza, which would have second syllable stress, but perhaps because it comes from another language, it could be Yakuza or Yakuza. They could have a different vowel sounds, different syllable stress pattern on that. For Medipack, when we have words like Medicare, medicine, we have medi, which is like a vowel flap or a D, and an unstressed I because it's long short, meta. With Medipack, it might run together like that and use that convention, Medipack. But the way it's written with this hyphen makes me think that it would be more like medi, the I would stay as an E, because if we said medi by itself, we wouldn't say meta, we'd say medi. So I'm guessing that you can say medipack, because it's kind of a made up word for medical. But I would think either medi or medipack would be okay. If I medevac someone, I meta. Again, with these newer words that are made from a combination of words, I think there are some alternatives to the spelling rules. Let's look and see if that word is in the dictionary. Sometimes newer words that are used, you won't find. Yeah, it's not in the dictionary, so I can't use that for a reference point. So I would say meta or medipack would be acceptable there. Yes, okay. Hi, everybody else new. We have a question. Susanto is saying that they were saying the word nut, and that they finally had to say peanut to be understood. So nut, the schwa sound, you might have been doing it more like 2 tenths, like we were talking about, not instead of nut. So to say nut, think about just saying, for example, the relaxed schwa sound by itself. Keep your jaw fairly closed and relax the tongue. Nut. Also, make a contrast. So try saying not and nut, not nut. So you want to feel more open on not and more relaxed on nut. You can also try some nuts. Try to get your vowel to be an sound for both, match the vowel. And if your vowel changes, if you hear some nuts instead of some nuts, if you're not matching, then you know one of those vowels is incorrect. Also, sometimes having context, because even if your pronunciation is perfect, if you say a word by itself with no other context, sometimes people have a hard time knowing what the word is. So you might want to say, like you did, you ended up saying peanut, but saying, nut like walnut, giving examples. If I say walnut, almond, nut, then they're going to understand what I'm saying. So in the meantime, until you perfect your pronunciation, sometimes even after you perfect your pronunciation, you need to give some context. Single words are the hardest for a listener to understand without anything to know what to draw from. Great. So some strategies that you're already keeping in mind and using, but keep that in mind when you're talking, that it may not always be your pronunciation. It may also have something to do with the context for the listener. Okay. Question was, when people are saying, how do we hear the R somewhere? How do you? No, there shouldn't be any R sound in that combination. How do you do? How do you do that? How do you talk to him? There's no R there. Great. Okay. Wonderful questions today. Just a recap, we started with our could've, should've, would've, couldn't have, shouldn't have, wouldn't have. So you can go back to the beginning if you're joining in later, if you'd like to get a little help for those phrases. We'll continue next week with another short topic at the beginning and spend most of our time on your questions. If you're watching this as a replay, you didn't catch us live, you can leave your questions in the comments. I do go back to answer those, send you links to videos and resources that I have to help you out. And of course, I hope you can come back next week on Friday for our live class. And coming soon, within the next few weeks, we'll be having some additional classes for people who want to join the channel as members. And those will be a similar format. We'll be teaching new topics, taking questions. And so I hope you'll be able to be part of that with me. I'll be back again tomorrow with a Word of the Day class and every day next week. Thank you so much for the wonderful suggestions. And if you have a word or a phrase you'd like help with, do feel free to leave it in the comments and I'll get back to you with a Word of the Day video to answer you. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com. Remember, if you want to sound American, you can do it. speechmodification.com. Bye guys. Thanks so much. See you tomorrow.